Alright. So, real quick, please forgive the mess behind me. I bought some boxes for my slabs. So I got those organized, and then last night I spent hours redoing my comic books, my raw books as well, because I like to organize them kind of like how comic book stores do, alphabetically, numbers, then alphabetically with major series having their own tabs. Okay, I'll show you guys the collection at some point. I might have a picture of the collection from a few months ago, but anyways, so been watching a video about CGC pricing and the process. So here's CGC grading. Okay, modern and vintage. Vintage is 40 bucks, modern is 25. Okay, and then you have the options to fast track. But for the purposes of this, we're just strictly going with you're just doing your base 25 bucks or 40 bucks. Okay, and max value of any book in either category is $400. So what this will boil down to is what is it, about 6.25% at a $400 value. 10% if it's vintage, even if it's a dollar bin book from 1974, a dollar bin book, you're paying 40 bucks. Okay, so in these two categories, you definitely want to, as far as if you're slabbing for an investment, you absolutely want to get a real solid FMV on your books before. If you're slabbing for investment, you want a reliable FMV. And here's where and typically some people say, well, they can go up and they can go down. Sure enough, but books that are in the $400 range, unless they're the flash in the pan type that had a whole bunch of publicity because of a Marvel project at Disney, unless there's something behind, something like that, like in the case of the Eternals, those books ain't worth shit. They spiked momentarily, and now they are not worth shit. Okay, spikes due to media, unless it is a resounding success, it's not going to last. But books that have steadily grown in value and have held through the test of time, they're going to continue to hold through the test of time. But if you're slabbing to protect the book, and there is no better protection than slabbing the comic, and it looks gorgeous. Now, if you're slabbing for display, I would recommend not slabbing, but buying comic book frames, picture frames for comics. If you want to put them up on the wall, buy those. At least the majority of them have UV protection, and that's absolutely critical. If you're going to slab, or if you want to display books, don't slab them. Leave them raw, and buy comic book frames with UV protection. Use that to display. If you are slabbing to preserve, because it's a favorite of yours. I have a number of comics that I think I may slab just because I love those comics, and I want to have a set with the maximum amount of protection I can give them for whatever. I don't have kids myself, but my brother does, and maybe, hey, here's a set of comics, and they can take and have them broken out if they want to enjoy them. Especially if my raw copies, and typically anything that I slab, I have a second raw copy of, so I can still go and enjoy the book. So it's really a question of, am I slabbing for investment? Am I slabbing for protection? or am I slabbing for display? If you're slabbing for display, again, buy a picture frame. It's cheaper and it offers, and if you pay attention, you can find the ones that offer UV protection. And it looks fantastic. If you're slabbing for protection, okay. And but if you're slabbing for investment, you absolutely want to get your values, your FMVs, fair market value, beforehand. And that is a trick in itself, is where do you get the best numbers, okay? And we'll touch on that, okay? So anyways, you have your two categories. After 1975, which is actually my birth year, and before 1975. So 1975 on is modern, 1974 back is vintage. Okay, but regardless of the age, if it's greater than a $400 market value FMV, then this doesn't matter anymore. You're now into high value, which is a maximum $1,000. Okay, so let's say you have a $400 book, and modern, you're at 6.25% is the ratio. Okay, vintage, 10%. High value, vintage is probably the worst ratio. Then high value, if your book, that's pretty bad. 10% is $100, so 85. Oh, that's 8.5%. So vintage pre-1975. If you're submitting anything from 1974 or earlier for investment, you had better make sure that it is a rock star book, because you're paying the steepest ratio. You're paying 10% of that book's value to get it slabbed. And honestly, I don't know. I'd probably have to want to love the book to slap anything older than 1975, because that's expensive. 6.25%, 10%, 8.5%, up to the 1,000. But if you're slabbing, if you've got a $450 book, you are taking it. You are getting beat up. Okay? But the flat rate, I mean, really, the flat rate, they have to, right? Because let's say if they just said, 4% of the fair market value across the board, it would be an accounting nightmare. It would be brutal. Especially because modern books have such wild swings. It would be brutal. And you'd be sitting there trying to calculate prices on things that, a $10 book. No. Let's say they got a $10 book. Yeah, 4% of that. Yeah, no. You're looking at a couple bucks. Not even. No, actually less than $1. So no. 40 cents? Yeah. That wouldn't even cover the cost of the plastic. That wouldn't even cover the cost of the label. So there's got to be a baseline. Okay? If you consider the wages of the graders, the equipment, because every book is a value. The condition of the books are captured when they arrive to the facility. They scan, they verify the list against what was sent in, and they capture the condition of the book. In case a client comes back and says, hey, you damaged my book, and is like, no, it arrived in that condition. Because until it is opened and accepted by CGC, any damage that occurs in shipping is on you, the customer. You packed it, that's on you. So they capture the condition of the books when they arrive to the facility, just in case there is a dispute. Okay? And then you have, I believe it's 2 different graders, but we'll take a look at that as well. And then it gets QA'd, encapsulated, and it's photographed now. Okay, and so 25. When you consider the amount of labor involved in slabbing a book, the $25 is a very reasonable fee. I don't have a problem with that. Vintage, just because it's old doesn't mean it's valuable. That is a $15 jump. That's extreme. I think that is a bit extreme. Now, yes, the books, the quality of the paper and such isn't as good. They can be brittle. Damage can be incurred just by opening it, depending on the state of the paper. Now, yes, it would be super low grade anyways, but I think this is where they would have the most issues, the most complaints is when they're dealing with older books. But yeah, the vast majority, this is true with modern too, but the vast majority of these books aren't worth anything. They're not worth nothing. You'll find I can go to DZ Comics right now and show you a bin full of old ass comics that aren't worth shit. Age doesn't determine value. It might determine rarity to a certain extent, but not value. And rare doesn't always mean value either. You need the combination of rarity and demand. If you don't have both of those, you don't have value. Okay? You can have demand, but if it's not rare, if everybody has it, wants it, and everybody has it, it's not going to be valuable. Honestly, I think that, what is it, that Ultimate Fallout, Miles Morales, how many tens of thousands of 9/8s are out there? The only reason it's valuable right now, in my opinion, is because everybody wants one. But wait 5 years when everybody decides to start offloading that and the market is flooded with them. You have 20,000 copies of anything and it's not going to be worth 20,000 9/8s of anything. It's not going to be worth shit because anybody who wants one's got one. And then you get into your high value, okay? Regardless of age, like the age only matters in two categories. The under $400, if it's under $400, or $400 and less, that's when age matters. $401 and above, age no longer matters, okay? Only FMV. If it's a $1,000 book, you're doing 8.5% per item, which isn't great. It falls right in between modern and vintage ratio. But if you're dealing with a $450 book, yeah, you're taking it. you're paying some high ass values. But again, the same thing is true for both of these as well. I mean, if you're submitting a book just because you love it and it's worth $5, you know, of course the ratio is way off. But we're going off of, just so that we have a level playing field, we're going off max value. Okay, 400, you're at 6.25%. $400 pre, you're at 10%. High value, you're at 8.5%. Unlimited value, though, this is when we are $1,001 to forever. To multi-million-dollar books, 4%. Minimum $100. Now, if I had a book that was worth $1,000 or $1,001, which puts me into the unlimited value, it's probably, I'm looking at a 10%. You know, that's gonna hurt, you know, because it's a minimum $100. So this 4% is the cheapest ratio of all of them. Above $4,000. If your book is worth less than $4,000, you pay more. But even at $1,001, you're at 10%, which is equal to vintage, but cheaper than high value, or equal to vintage, more expensive than high value. Yeah, you know. So unlimited value, if you're in that no man's land, if you want to get the most bang for your buck, the most value, if you're in no man's land between $1,000 and $4,000, maybe just sit on it. But also too, at the same time, if you've got a $2,000 comic book, it's well in your interest to go ahead and pull the trigger on $100. You know, what we're talking about is ratio. Is like, a lot of people have issue with the 4% unlimited value. Okay, that's based on its raw value. All of these values are based on raw values, because the CGC can't charge you based on something they don't know. So these are all raw values. $400 raw value, $400 raw. All the values are based on raw. They can't charge you on an unknown because you pay before they grade. So 4% fair market value. So why do they switch to a percentage, which is a lower percentage once you're over $4,000? I'm sorry. Yeah, once you're over $4,000, this is the cheapest by far. By far, that's the cheapest, because the best possible deal is 6.25% there. The best possible deal is 10% here, and the best possible deal here is 8.5%. 4%, that is the lowest. So why? Well, let's say for easy numbers, let's say I have a $100,000 book that I want graded. It's going to cost me $4,000 to get that graded. Now, if I own a $100,000 book, $4,000 should not be a problem. Okay? If it is a problem, okay then. Put the book in a safety deposit box and start saving, because it is worth, at that value level, it is worth slabbing, if for no other reason than to protect it. And even still, after you slab it, put it back into the safety deposit box. So, 4% fair market value, I submit a $100,000 book. The amount of risk that CGC is assuming, or any other grader for that matter, is assuming when they accept that book for grading is enormous. Okay, because the condition is captured when it arrives to the facility, and then they grade it. And let's say somebody makes a mistake when turning the page. They put a crease in the corner, however mild. A damn sneeze comes out of nowhere. We've all had the ambush sneeze. Whatever. Anything. I mean, things can be dropped. Things can be knocked. Somebody leans too far to the right and they slip and their hand goes down and they put a crease in the page. Okay? Even at a half a point worth of damage, thousands and thousands of dollars is lost of potential value. Okay? And they know they did it. Okay? And that $4,000 for that $100,000 book to grade it, they are so far into the red immediately on that particular grade. They have no chance of making money, and like I said, they're thousands in the red. So that's why that 4% is there, because the risk has gotten so much larger. Okay? Even the slightest human error can result in thousands in damages. And they're on the hook for it. Any degradation of quality from when it is received to when it ships, it's on them. And they are financially responsible for that. So that's why that exists. Okay? 99 out of 100 books, no issues. Okay? They make bank. Now, the graders who grade this level of book are the best in their field. They're not going to let Johnny or Sally, who'd been doing this for 2 weeks, go near a $100,000 book. No, the best graders they have on staff are the ones who handle these. Okay, so there is greater cost associated with it. Okay, because their top graders make more money than Johnny and Sally, two weakers. You know, I've been doing this for a week and a half or 2 years even. Doesn't matter. Their best graders are on this book. There's more cost involved. Okay? So that is why the 4%. That is why it is more expensive. The costs might not go up. Like, the costs do go up because the wages of the inspectors who do unlimited value is higher. But it's not that extreme. The biggest issue is the liability. Okay? They are on the hook for, in some cases, it could be tens of thousands of dollars for a mistake. So that's what that is. It's kind of like auto insurance in that respect. Okay? Same person, same city, same driving. All variables are exactly the same except two different cars. One is a 2010 Malibu. The other one is a Lamborghini. Okay? Same driver. All variables are the same except the cars. That Lamborghini, you can bet, is going to have a lot higher insurance rates because any mishap is going to be far more expensive than with the Malibu. And same thing with your comic books. An accident can happen while they're grading a Spawn #1, and that could cost them $100. You know, it took it from a 9.8 to a 9.0, and it cost them $100. You know, versus you know, one of the epic Grail keys, a mistake, an equal mistake on a Grail, tens of thousands of dollars, potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that's why. That's my thoughts on why that is. Okay. I think the vintage is a little ridiculous because outside, I mean, the value cap is the exact same. Pre-75, it costs a lot more. And I'm not sure why that jump is $15. I mean, if the paper is that brittle and such, like your Grail keys, your expensive books, once it's over $400, it's high value regardless of age, unlimited value regardless of age. It's only your low-end keys that are getting walloped. So if there's anything to really complain about, unlimited value makes sense, high value makes sense. Vintage, that does not make sense. A $15 jump. You know, yeah, that does not make sense. So if there's anything, if there's a legitimate gripe in the pricing, it should be on the vintage. Because age in and of itself has no bearing on value. So I just wanted to touch on that. And kind of give my 2 cents on the price. Because like I said, a lot of channels have had issue with that 4%. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. They're just trying to profit off of a person's Grail. No. It's not about profit. It's about liability. Because, you know, 4%, I mean, hey, like I said, it's a single mistake could wind up walloping any profitability from the book at all. The higher the value of the book, let's say it's $1 million book, the slightest mistake could be tens of thousands of dollars. A $100,000 book, a mistake could cost tens of thousands of dollars. It's about liability at this point. High value, Yeah, there's still, again, the high value, to an extent, there's some liability issues. But again, your high value graders, they also get paid more. I promise you that. The graders who are at the high value level are not the same guys who are grading modern books or vintage. Like, this I think would be categories of graders. Modern and vintage would be the same cadre of graders. Maybe a little bit more experience in the vintage, so because they need to know best what to absolutely remember to check for with regards to staples and the like, and common manufacturing defects, which is different in grading than the defects that occur from reading. So you have to know what the common manufacturing defects are, because manufacturing defects can exist on a 9/8 book. But you have to be able to recognize what is a manufacturing defect and what is not. Like the claw grabbers for pulling the pages through the press was very common in your older books. That's not a defect of the reader. That's a defect that's a part of the manufacturing process. So that's graded differently. And then your high value is definitely going to be a different caliber grader. And then your top graders in the industry are going to be working your unlimited values when they come in. When there are no high unlimited values in the house, sure, they can grade anything else, but yeah, this isn't going to be Sue or Sally or Joe or Jimmy started this job even 5 years ago. They're not going to be in unlimited value territory. So, well, there's my take on it. Yeah, I'm interested to hear your takes. But for good or ill, liability more than anything. But it's the best deal. Unlimited value has the best deal. As far as cost and value, unlimited value is the best deal in the house. Above $4,000, it's the best deal. Vintage is a raper. Or I can't say that. Anyways, thanks for watching. I hope this helps, and looking forward to hearing or seeing what thoughts any of you might have on it.